Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2480. Today, instead of driving, we're going flying. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive, I should say aeronautical enthusiasts today, because today we're going to take to the air. I'm in San Diego, California, my hometown, with a very special guest by the name of Rich Kenney. Rich, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have it in gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, I guess on an aircraft, what would you release when you're ready to take off? Would it be the brakes?
Well, there's several things you have to go through before you even think about taking off. There's a whole checklist of things that you have to go through to be sure everything's functioning properly. And when you get that, go through your checklist and you think you got it all, you're taxiing down to the end of the runway, and then you do a power up. And you've got your brakes on, and you're not going anywhere, but you power it up to make sure your magnetos are working, all your backup systems are working, all your fluids are fine, and everything reads out perfectly. Then you can take off, and it's a thrill. But again, it's your life on the line with that airplane, so you want to make sure everything's running. If something gets a little funny, you can't just pull off the side of the road or hit pause and look at the manual. You have to understand exactly what's going on. And what's interesting, where there's an interesting crossover, is a lot of the folks I get rides with. I don't own an airplane, but I have friends that do, and they pay for it. And I get a free ride, so that's a pretty good deal.
Best kind of airplane to have.
Yeah, that's the best kind to have. And but a lot of them have actually restored these aircraft and taken them all the way apart to the bottom, the last pieces and parts, and reassembled them, cleaned them all up, and did all of that. So they are much more intimately aware of their aircraft and everything about it than most people are. Airplanes you just buy and fly. The passion for restoration that they have is like the ones that the folks in the Concours have. That to me is where there's a symbiotic relationship in a way, the restoration passion that these folks have.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to talk about that. Let me give you an introduction first, though. But one thing I do here as a little bit of an icebreaker is ask this question. What's one little thing that maybe most people don't know about you, Rich?
Well, I'm from different worlds, if you will. The Concours world is one world, and the San Diego world, what I've done here, is different in some ways than my life path since high school. I was a gymnast at Willowbrook High School in Illinois, suburb of Chicago, and we won the state championship, which was a pretty big deal because there were over 230-some high schools that were competing, and we beat them all, and undefeated season, and developed a sense of teamwork there because that's what it took. And interestingly enough, my two coaches were not gymnasts, but they were football coaches, but they were also Marines. And somehow in the magic of what they did, they turned us young wild kids into disciplined athletes. And that high school has never won another state championship since then, which I've been reminded of recently. And it developed a sense of teamwork. And from there, I got a full ride scholarship to the University of Michigan to be on their gymnastics team.
Well, there you go.
We did extremely well there, and I got to be team captain my senior year, amongst other things that I did at other awards, if you will, at college. So the gymnastics path, I wouldn't say controlled my life, but it was a path that was in front of me that just kept getting better and better. So I've stayed in that gymnastics world for, I look back, and I think it's something like 40 years I've been involved in various aspects of gymnastics, one of which, again, where there's a crossover, is events and sponsorships. So back in the 80s and some of the 90s, if you saw gymnastics on television, and you saw McDonald's banners or Dodge or Nissan or what have you, those were corporate sponsorship deals I put together and married up with television broadcast. So that gymnastics world went beyond being a performer. Because my background was basically industrial design, product design, and marketing. And I understood that world, whereas everybody else that was in the sport were coaches and athletes. They did not have any perception of what it takes to get a sponsorship or put something on television and market an event or a sport. So that's the world that probably the Concours d'Elegance folks in the automotive world doesn't know about me.
Oh, absolutely. Very important in that world. Well, let me introduce you here. Rich Kenney is the co-founder of AeroED Group, whose motto is Flight, Inspiration for Learning. He has been this FlyBy Chair for the La Jolla Concours d'Elegance since 2013 when he got a ride over the event in a Stearman biplane previously owned by Steve McQueen, another car guy. Rich has enjoyed being a member of the organization committee ever since. He was selected to the board of directors and is now the VP of the World Acrobatic Society, and in 2023 received their prestigious Golden Achievement Award. Rich's career has been in a variety of endeavors of corporate sponsorships, market research, consulting, sports marketing, to name just a few. He has sat on numerous boards and received the Outstanding Contribution to Aerospace Education of Aeronautics and Astronautics. So we'll be back in just a moment, but first a word from our sponsors, so give them a little love, and we'll be right back. Buckle up, we're about to go for a flight. Are you ready to take charge of your financial future? Then let me introduce you to Capitalize Your Finances. It's an online course designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools for mastering your money. This course will help you lay out the ins and outs of budgeting, the importance of emergency funds, investing strategies, and how to plan for a secure retirement. All this presented by financial planner Chris Paniotu. Chris has developed this course to help you effectively navigate your world of finance with confidence. Stop stressing about money and start taking control. Enroll in Capitalize Your Finance online course today and pave your way to financial success. To learn more, go to capitalizepodcast.com/courses, or better yet, go to the Cars Yeah website, show notes page for today's show, and click on the link under Capitalize Your Finances. You'll be glad you did. Do it today. Hey, guess what? Some of you regular listeners will remember back in 2019, I created 10, 11 shows called Cars Yeah TV, where I went to some fabulous locations of past Cars Yeah guests, and we did a TV show about it. Well, they're up on the Cars Yeah YouTube channel. So go check it out at YouTube. Just type in Cars Yeah, and the shows will be there for you to enjoy. I hope you have fun watching. So, Rich, we are back. So I want to talk about, of course, the La Jolla Concours, because the La Jolla Concours I've been going to since the beginning, and one of the very unique things they do many unique things with that 3-day event, is a wonderful flyby of some vintage aircraft. And it's so cool because that setting is perfect. You got the ocean out there, the planes can fly fairly close in safety to all the cars, so you can see them right there up close and personal. I mean, you can see the pilots in the planes, which is really cool. So this fascination for aerospace, for old planes, for flying, I would assume this is something that took place that infected you maybe early on in your career?
Yes. In fact, I built model kits, and my dad took me to air shows, and I always remember the Blue Angels and airplanes. My dad would talk about them. And I grew up as a kid watching Air Power on TV and Victory at Sea. And I wanted to be a Navy pilot, got excited about all of that. So aviation was kind of in the background, inspiring when I was a kid. So that was fun. And the automotive part of it, interestingly enough, is my dad, his cousin owned a car dealership. And we seem to be getting, I'm just looking at the list of cars. It seemed like we get a different car every other year, and unique cars too. So it was interesting. So I had that constant flow of cars, and I wanted to be a car designer. And I built clay model cars, built model car kits, and so on, and airplane kits, and different things like that. And I think, and part of it is my dad, he's owned a model shop where there were prototypes that were made. That's kind of how I got into product design.
Oh, wow.
I worked for a design company that designed television, consumer electronics products, TVs and radios and stereos and coffee pots and a variety of different things.
Oh, cool.
And I got into that because my dad's model shop would make the prototypes. So interesting ideas come up, and it's a sketch on a napkin, and it may be a year or more before it actually gets in the marketplace. But along the way, all sorts of sketches and drawings and engineering and work it all out, but then they'll make a prototype that looks like the actual production piece before it's produced. Those end up being they photograph for the advertising. Because you don't want to wait for the manufactured product to be done before you photograph it and advertise it. You advertise it, do all that work up ahead, and you're using the prototypes for that. So that was a very precise work. I got to be a bit of a craftsman with that. That's where I got into making model cars and clay model cars. And there was a General Motors contest that I'm very interested in getting, submitting something for, but I was too shy to send my designs in after seeing the ones that won. But anyway, it was a fascinating adventure to design cars after seeing so many.
Oh, yeah. My father, when he was young, he ended up being an architect, but he entered that program back in the 40s and actually got an award. I have that car sitting here right in front of me right now. They designed and carved a car out of balsa wood and submitted it. And then they took prizes and brought some of the winners out to, I think it was Detroit at the time. Some of the young students. So I always say that's my prized possession as a memory of my dad, is that balsa wood car, which is so cool. So I love it. Well, I want to talk more about how you got involved with the La Jolla Concours, because this tie-in with airplanes, and I love the way at the beginning you tied the idea of restoring an old aircraft, to fly it, much like automobiles are restored so they could be driven and used. How did you first get that ride in that Stearman, which is a pretty cool history piece, and then got involved with the Concours?
Well, remembering it now as the fact that I was the marketing director for Wings Over Gillespie Air Show that was at Gillespie Field. The gentleman that was our wing leader for Air Group 1 at the time, Bob Simon, had a biplane that he restored. Interestingly enough, he flew jumbo jets across the world. He would fly them to London. He'd fly them to Tokyo. I mean, he was quite the experienced pilot, the Navy pilot. He got asked to do a flyover of the Concours, and he couldn't. His plane wasn't ready at the time, so he called on his good friend Bill Allen, who has a private museum out there at Gillespie Field, if he would take his place. And Bob said, "Geez, Rich, you're in the marketing world. This is I can't really be part of this committee. I don't know anything about any of this stuff. This is more your bailiwick. Why don't you get involved?" And I said, "Sure." And I got this ride, and I kind of got hooked on it. So I said, they asked me, can we get more airplanes? And I go, well, I'll take a shot at it. Having put together, part of the, a couple of air shows, you get to make some contacts and friends and so on. So they asked me to do something more for the following year. And so I think we got half a dozen or more aircraft. But the other part of it is they asked me, is there anything else we can do aviation-wise? One of the things I did is in my AeroED program, my aerospace education program, I built a friendship with a gentleman that made drones. Oh. Nobody had really seen them. He made them from scratch. And he was an architect and an engineer on the side, and he made these to fly over, building sites and so on, and provide some sort of, photographic record and so on. Yeah. So in I think it's 2014, I inspired him to get involved and do a flyover with the drone of the Concours. You may have remembered it. Nobody had ever seen drones before.
Yeah.
So we came up with a video version of the Concours d'Elegance and the tour and everything else with drone shots, and lots of people looking up at it. So you saw a lot of faces looking. What is that strange thing? So that was kind of an introduction to drones at the time to that audience. And ever since, every video you see now uses drones as part of promotions. And they wanted something to put a display on the grounds. And I knew a gentleman that restored, if you can picture this, the front cockpit section of a Stratoliner, one of the biggest aircraft, commercial aircraft at the time back in the 50s. So it was just a cockpit. and he restored the cockpit and put it on a trailer, and we brought it to the Concours, and it was set up for the kids to get in and have a good time with. So that was unique.
Very cool.
I knew a gentleman that was an author and a historian, and part of the thing that I knew, the history that I knew of aviation, was that in World War II, at the Concours, you didn't have any cars on display between 42 and 45 because they basically shut down making automobiles, and they turned it all into war production. And that conversion is part of what won the war. Was the automotive companies that were so good at manufacturing, mass manufacturing, were able to basically, I think, like 2/3 of the airplanes and trucks and tanks and everything else and engines and all of that came from the automobile industry. Not just for our armies, but I think we sent 1 million trucks to Russia and Europe and all over the world was because of our incredible automobile industry and their know-how. And that, to me, was worth celebrating and made people realize that that's how significant the automobile industry was to the world at the time.
Oh, it's quite amazing. A guest I've had on the show several times, A.J. Baim, wrote a great book called The Arsenal of Democracy.
Yes, that's a book I have.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
And, his other book, Go Like Hell, which is the book about the Ferrari-Ford wars at Le Mans, that book is the most recognized or recommended book here on Cars Yeah, but The Arsenal of Democracy is absolutely fascinating. And what a history of how our industry turned everything around and helped win the war. When we look at up at the airplanes in the sky that fly over this, there's more than just one or two. There's quite a group of them. Do you know by any chance what type of aircraft are going to be flying this year at the Concours?
Well, we have usually a stable of Stearmans. That was a trainer plane that was back in the late 30s and 40s. That's the biplane, like the one that Steve McQueen owned. And those are a real popular one for restoration and for flying. Very rugged aircraft, very reliable, very fixable, and it was made as it was a trainer essentially. So it was made for clumsy students to bang around in and land roughly and so on. So it was an excellent aircraft for that. But there's only I think in the range of 900 of them left in the world. So they're rare as well. So there's several of those. The other airplane that's comparable in biplaner in a way are the Buchers. Buchers are the training equivalent of the Stearman, but for Europe. It's essentially made for the German training of the Luftwaffe at one point, but also the other countries in Europe bought them as trainers and also licensed them to build them. The Swiss, I think the Spanish and the French and so on. So that was a training aircraft of the 30s. So there's a group of those that are restored out here at Gillespie Field, and they fly as well as a group. So those are the two probably biplanes that are unique. The other ones are, there's a group of T-34s that was a trainer plane for the Navy and the Air Force and so on. There's a formation team that flies those, and as well as, it's called a Yak.
Okay.
It was made, another one of those planes that was made and manufactured in Europe. The Czechs had them, the Russians had them, all the Eastern Bloc countries used them as trainers. Again, trainers are very rugged, very simple in many ways to fly, and so they became produced in great numbers because they were needed to train a lot of people, and a few of them got cracked up training. So those airplanes are out there, and I had the privilege of riding one of those. That's one of the pictures I sent you.
Yes.
I was in the plane videotaping flying over the Concours, which is quite the thrill to do that. So those are the basic ones. The others are like collecting cars, if you will. But there are some unique aircraft that do fly. We have some of the regular ones that fly over. The San Diego Salute Formation Team has become our steady. And they fly a variety of different events, mostly to commemorate different aviation events. They fly over the Midway for big events, and they fly over ours and the Mount Soledad events, Memorial Day and Veterans Day events. So they become friends of ours. As it was explained to me, they really enjoy being part of the Concours because we get them into the event after they fly on Sunday. They come in their flight suits to join up, and they really like it because they get to bring their wives. And that's the only trade-off for them on this very expensive aviation hobby they have. They get to bring their wives to these fabulous parties. So.
No, they're great fun. The history of aviation in San Diego goes so far back, and I'll remind you listeners that are going to be heading to La Jolla at San Diego for the Concours. It's a wonderful aerospace museum in Balboa Park. There's an automotive museum right next to it. You've got to attend that because it's been there forever. I used to go there just as a kid when they first opened that. Some wonderful things to see there, but mostly at La Jolla Concours around midday when it's lunchtime, look up to the sky. You'll see these airplanes flying over, having fun. And what a setting, and the weather is always spectacular. So we really look forward to that. Being part of this group, what are some of the challenges that you face with setting something like this up? Because bureaucracy, as Michael Dorvier has said, is a challenge when you're setting up any kind of Concours event. But I would imagine the bureaucracy or the rules and regulations when you add flight and old airplanes flying over people probably creates a few challenges.
Part of the secret to me, and the person that deserves a lot of credit, is Phil Kendrow, former Marine pilot. Now he's a pilot for United Airlines. But he is the air boss, and he's the person that can speak to these pilots in great detail, understands all the flight characteristics that are necessary. He deals with the FAA all the time. He has to, and can talk to the control towers, speak their language. So I help facilitate to a point, get them excited, involved, help make that liaison work. But Phil is really the one that does the detail work directly with the pilots. And you really need a person like that's that experienced. And he's done massive flyovers and air shows and so on as an air boss. So that's a person that has that three-dimensional sense of what's going on in the air, and timing is critical. Knowing how to make a spread between certain aircraft. Some are faster than others. Some leave a wake, some don't. And altitudes and all of that. There's a whole three-dimensional mix, if you will. And that's one of the fascinations about aviation. You think of a highway map, you see everything in 2 dimensions. But in aviation, there's 3 dimensions, and at different altitudes, all different. Which directions you go in, and the commercial airliners say they track the weather at different altitudes and report that back, and that has an effect on how well weather forecasting is, because it really is a different weather pattern at different altitudes that you don't experience that on the ground. So there's a lot of intricacies to aviation that fascinate me, because you think, well, you just step on the gas and just fly by.
No
just
big
pull
deal.
the wheel or stick or whatever, and you just fly. It's just like a car. No, there's a whole lot more to it. And it takes some very special people to do it. And virtually all the pilots, whether military pilots or commercial airline pilots, so they are all into the multiple thousands of hours of flight time. So these folks are not amateurs that are flying over. They've all been professional pilots at one point or another in their careers. So it's very safe in that regard. And we fly over water, which gives us that altitude advantage that we can be a bit lower. We don't fly over the population whatsoever, and that keeps it safe. So it's all very well controlled and very safe, and it is unique. As far as I know, there's no other Concours anywhere in the world that does what we do with this number of aircraft. There may be an occasional aircraft flies over somebody, but nobody does it like we do. So that's a unique feature for us.
Yours is for sure. The Quail that happens during Pebble Beach Car Week, they did have a flyover this past summer, and it was with jets. And I think there were 5 of them, just 5 of them. But they did some they had smoke trails, and they created some beautiful displays and things. And I believe it's the first time I've seen that happen there. I think they might have had older, like a P-51 Mustang or Spitfire flyover, just 1 or 2. But this is very unique. And the entire part of it just adds to the wonderful ambience of the entire event. Before I let you go today, I want to talk a little bit about you and cars, because you and I had a nice little chat before we began our talk today about your history of cars. You mentioned that you had a family where you seem to be getting new cars all the time. Is there one special car that stands out in your mind that you've had in your family or had yourself or been involved with?
Well, a couple. I'm looking down the list I have here. The car that really I mean, other than that Studebaker that really, it's just a bullet nose Studebaker. I mean, it was like almost like an airplane, like a spaceship to me when I was a kid, very young. And but the car I remember a lot was the '57 Chrysler Imperial, and it was a monster. It barely fit in the garage, and I could remember my job was to wash the car. And I wasn't even tall enough to reach the top of the tail fins.
Wow.
So this car was like an aircraft carrier. It was huge.
Yeah.
And, it was like a living room inside of it. It was so big and so plush. And it was a forest green. It was just to me, was one of the most beautiful cars I've ever seen. As a kid, that was the size of it, everything about it was just so unique, and it was very special. We go to dinner at fancy places in it and so on. So it was top of the world as far as fancy cars go. But I shouldn't say trained. I learned how to drive the car I drove in high school. First one was the first generation Corvair, and that was unique. And again, that's kind of my dad's thing. He wanted to get the newest and the most unique cars. He thought they were trendsetters, so he got the first generation Corvair. And I remember him asking me, he said, son, why are the tires only worn on the edges and not the middle? Why? Where do you go with this thing?
Yeah.
So I really, it was my sports car at the time. And then he got the second generation Corvair Monza coupe, which was pretty nice.
Oh,
and then,
yeah.
Then he got I think a 66 Chevelle Super Sport. Got that. And I thought, when I'm in high school, that was cool. And then he got a '69 Camaro Super Sport.
Oh my gosh!
And so when I come home from college, I had a sports car to catch up with my friends with, and that was fun.
Oh, lucky you!
And then later on, when I come home from college, my dad was he had Mazdas, the Wankel engine Mazdas.
Oh, yeah.
He thought, well, that's it. That's going to Wankels are going to take over the world.
Well, not quite, but
not quite. And what frustrated him is he had to make an appointment with a specialist to fix it when there was a problem with it. You couldn't just pull into a station and have anybody know what the heck's going on with that engine. So the rarity of it made it difficult. But that was the adventure my dad had with cars.
What a lucky life you had to have so many unique cars around you. I mean, that's really, really cool. No doubt that formed a lot of your fascination. We spoke about books, and I always like to ask my guests if they could recommend a great book for our listeners. Of course, we talked about A.J. Bame's Arsenal of Democracy and Go Like Hell. Is there a book you might recommend to our listeners today?
Well, I mean, they made a movie of it, but The Right Stuff is considerably more detailed, and it really gives you an appreciation of what military pilots are about. And with my partner, who was, as I mentioned, was a Marine Corps pilot with 3 distinguished flying crosses for valor in flight. I mean, he was just a tremendous pilot. He had 63 air medals, which is probably a record for missions and a variety of different things. He worked his way up to become a full colonel. And his last flying assignment was Marine One for 2 presidents. So, and just very humble man. You had to kind of pull it out of him what his experiences were. Well, we have a group. We have what's called a beer call. And these are veteran pilots, and we get together and we have lunch, and they share some stories and about airplanes and air bases and places they've been. And when you hear a couple of these guys that flew jumbo jets and they're saying, "Oh, that airport 27, that runway 27 in Istanbul is a real bear," and and when they're talking about common places that they've been in the service or where they fly to, and it's worldwide. It's just amazing. And these guys are just laughing it up, and they're humble about it. And it's just fascinating to me that gee, I'm in the presence of these people that are just incredible.
Right. Yeah, the training they go through and is amazing. And San Diego's not one of the easiest airports to fly into either, is it? I mean, it feels like you're flying right through the downtown buildings to get in there.
Well, it's unique.
I know way back when I lived in San Diego, they talked about moving it somewhere. They were afraid that it was going to, outgrow itself, and it probably has in many ways, but they've somehow made it work. Now I don't know where they could go to. Like, where would they build another airport, So,
well, on the horizon is, and this is another thing that we're looking at down the road, is what generically is called flying cars. There's billions of dollars being invested by many, many companies into what will be flying cars. The replacement, if you will, in a way for helicopters that will be a lot quieter, not more, have more opportunities to go various places, and for a variety of functions. So you'll be seeing flying cars around. This basically, you think of scaling up these small drones into people-sized ones that carry passengers, or can be used for emergency services and a variety of different things. But that is in the future. It's out there.
Well, I have a new concept for a new product then based on that, and that would be steel umbrellas. So I'm going to get to work on that. we might need those. The way people drive, I'm not sure I want them flying over my head all day long, but that's another topic. Hey, I like to enable my guests to go on what I call the ultimate drive. Today, I'm going to mix it up just for you, Rich. It's the ultimate flight. So I'm going to magically make you a pilot, okay? I'm going to put you in any airplane that you would like to fly, and you can fly it anywhere that you would like to go. So if I can make that happen for you today, what airplane would you be in, and where would you like to fly? And if you could take somebody with you, who would it be?
Well, I'll tell you, that's interesting. It just triggered a memory. I had a picture over my desk for years and years, and it was called the airplane was a Lake Buccaneer. So it was an amphibious airplane, and the prop was blowing out the back, if you will, to make it visible, to make you understand it. And it would land on lakes, and it had landing gears. And I had recently read a history of the Lindberghs. And one of the trips that Charles Lindbergh made with his wife was they had the assignment to identify a flight path from Los Angeles to Europe, but going over Canada and going up, closer to the Arctic Circle and so on. So he had this gigantic, I think it was custom. I don't know the designation of that particular one. I can't remember that, but it was a seaplane, and it was amphibious. And they landed on lakes going across Canada and across the country, and they had relationships with Eskimos and tribes and all manner of things in basically unexplored territory for airplanes.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, now that's an adventure, and his wife could fly too. So they shared the adventure together. And, that to me, that's an adventure. And I thought, well, if I can't fly that, I'll get a Lake Buccaneer and just fly up and land on these lakes out in the middle of Canada somewhere and maybe go fishing or hunting or whatever. But just to be completely free of civilization, they had that sense of exploring and adventure. That to me would be, at least it was until you mentioned it. I don't know what I'd dream about if I had to come up with it right now, but that one was in my mind and my dreams for a long, long time.
Well, that's a pretty cool answer to that question. Well, you've taken us on a wonderful flight today. Normally I say ride, but you've taken us on a wonderful flight today, sharing your passion for aircrafts and how you are involved in this wonderful flyover for the La Jolla Concours. Before I let you go today, Rich, could you leave us with some parting words of inspiration or wisdom?
One of the things I might mention that why I enjoyed being on the organizing committee for the Concours is a sense of teamwork. I was imbued with teamwork and didn't fully appreciate it when we won our state championships in Illinois, and then the teamwork being a captain of my team at Michigan. And then, this is another piece of history, I was a magazine managing editor for International Gymnast Magazine and became a photographer for that, and I ended up being an official photographer for a World Gymnastics Championships. The teamwork it required to make a magazine and get it out on time was something that I prized, is developing the team to be able to do that. You can't do it all yourself. And there was a boycott of the Olympics in 1980, some of you may remember. That virtually destroyed a lot of the momentum for the Olympic movement in the United States. The gymnastics, we were ready to be on the world stage in the Olympic with Kurt Thomas, who was our star. But when the Olympics went away, they changed administrations and the money dried up, and the sponsorships dried up, all sorts of problems. And because they knew me from my part of the teamwork that made that World Championship happen in Fort Worth, that was a major, major event, televised event and so on. They asked me to be part of the federation, trying to put together a new group. And I thought, well, why don't we have a magazine? And I had that magazine experience, so I created a new magazine, official magazine for the sport in the country. And that required building a new team of people. And couldn't do it without teamwork. Can't do it all yourself. And teamwork, creating those relationships and that reliance on each other and the confidence each other has to have was very important. We had to start all over again and move just a year before the Olympics. And it was just the new executive director and me. I guess a little perspective is a lot of organizations that are well-meaning and wonderful, they're a bit, I would call you, delusional utopians. And budgets are things you spend. They don't care where it comes from. It just better be there when I need it. And when you have organizations and board of directors that are made up all of these educators and coaches that just know how to spend money, don't know how to make it, they decided, well, we better keep Rich because he's the one that brings in the sponsors and makes us an ability to pay the bills and so on. So I got in on the ground floor selling another whole team of people and sponsorships and so on. And that led to us doing so successfully in the LA Olympics in '84. So, and then I got to, kind of ride the joy of that for the next dozen years and doing magazines and doing major events and major corporate sponsorships and television events and world championships. And I got to travel the world. And so teamwork made all that possible. So I have to give credit to all the people I work with for my ability to accomplish what I've done. That's how I got rewarded, the School and Achievement Award and so on, because a lot of people realize, wow, he was involved in all these different things over all these years. So, I can't thank enough other people that were my mentors and examples and teammates. Concours folks are the same. That's why I'm so comfortable with it and I enjoy it so much, is that teamwork is there. They all work together. They're all friends. They all have, an objective to make this the best event ever. And that really, really makes it a joy for me because not that many more teams I can be a part of, but this is one that I really cherish.
Ah, wonderfully said. I'll remind everybody the La Jolla Concours is April 19th, 20th, and 21st, of course, culminating on Sunday the 21st, where you'll see the flyover and all the beautiful cars and all the wonderful people. And of course, last week we had one of the key players, along with Rich today as guests on the show. So you can go back and listen to Michael Dorvier and the others who were part of the team of the La Jolla Concours. It takes a lot of people. And I want to do a shout out thank you to Haley Stewart at McFarland Promotions. She's the one that got Rich together with me today. So Haley, thank you very much. Rich, thank you for taking a pit stop here, or a hangar stop, I guess we could call it, and talking with me about your life and about the La Jolla Concours. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you at the La Jolla Concours.
Thank you very much. This was enjoyable. You opened my mind to things I hadn't thought about for a long time. So I really, really appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It was a delight. For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. Their talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and first-hand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com. Here at Cars Yeah, it's all about inspiration. And our charity of choice is TechForce Foundation, where it's all about making a positive difference in young people's lives. TechForce helps young adults discover their talents and passions for all things automotive, with a mission of helping students develop a career as a professional technician. TechForce awards nearly $2 million in scholarships every year for students to pursue technical education, and they support hands-on activities, events, and mentorships across the country, working to change the outdated perceptions of these careers. Auto techs are in high demand, but the supply of qualified technicians is critically short. They need your help to fuel their mission. Learn more and join me in supporting them at techforce.org.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah!